Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mubarak's podcast. This is Hashmat Mubarak, your host. It's an honor to have with us Mursal, a courageous Afghan writer, journalist. She has dedicated her life to amplifying the voices of Afghan women, first through her work at Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, and later through her powerful book, Who Will Hear Our Crisis? Forced into exile after the current regime took over, she continues to write, protest, and speak for those who remain silent. In Afghanistan, her story is one of resilience, loss, and hope. And today we dive into it with her. Dear Sus, welcome to Mubarak's podcast. We are so happy to have you.
Hi, Roberta. Thank you so much. Thanks for
Hmm.
having me and inviting me.
Thank you once again for joining us. But first of all, let me start from here that when you worked at Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, you were not only investigating cases, but listening to most painful and hiding stories of Afghan women. Many of those, voices might never have been, heard if not for your work. In this time of crisis, the courage, to tell the truth becomes revolutionary. As you once said that, I have heard it. Storytelling is another way to break the cycle of violence. This experience shaped, the foundation of your journey as a writer and activist. It will be so interesting for us to hear that how did your work, early work with survivors of violence influence the way you write and advocate today?
Mhm. Well, thank you so much. It was a long question, but I tried to answer all the part of it. I started my work with Human Rights Commission in Afghanistan with Women Rights Department, and I think the biggest responsibility I had in Human Rights Commission it was to follow up the domestic violence cases or gender-based violence cases in Afghanistan in different places like shelters, prisons, hospitals, at our office, and different places. So hearing those stories, those testimonies, following up all those cases, and watching those huge violence, institutionalized violence in Afghanistan, and how it was working, how the women were victims, and they couldn't get out of it. So it helped me, and it made me to think what we can do with all these cases. So just following them up, putting them in the folders, it will not solve anything. So that is why I started to writing the stories and to telling those stories to break this cycle, to say this is what happening in Afghanistan. When we talk about domestic violence, when we talk about violence against women in Afghanistan, people were denying it and they were saying, no, it doesn't exist. Well, now I'm talking about the so-called democratic country before the Taliban. Every time when we were talking about this huge violence against women, people were saying, no, it isn't. They were taking course. No, what you're saying, it is, you're trying to accuse the men for the things they didn't really committed, and you're making up all those things.
Mhm.
But then when I started to following up all those cases, for example, if a husband, he could shave his wife's hairs. He
Mhm.
could
Mhm.
beat her. He could imprison her just because maybe she didn't cook well. Maybe the children were crying. Maybe because she went out without asking him for permission. All those violence when I was talking and people were denying and they were refusing. They were saying, no, it doesn't exist. But that was what I was saying, I was seeing in the Human Rights Commission and also among my friends, among the people I was meeting. And then I thought it would be ideal to document it and to put it for the history so that people cannot deny that anymore. This is what I worked, this is what
It,
I saw, this is what I watched and followed up.
unfortunately, unfortunately, is the sad reality. Coming back to, sorry for interruption. Coming back to 2021, leaving Afghanistan in August 2021 was not just a departure for Afghan people, especially for Afghan women, including you. It was a rapture. You had to leave, your family, your home, and even your children behind. Millions of Afghans, especially women activists, share the pain of exile and separation. It's a wound I'm sure that it never fully heals, and yet you have turned it to that pain into a vice of resistance, something that we have to be proud of. But my question is this: that how has exile reshaped your sense of identity and your responsibility as a writer for Afghan women still inside the country?
Well, being exiled is not, it's not something easy, and it is totally, I can call it identity crisis because you don't know. Well, our life is separated in two parts before leaving our country and after that, before 2021 and after that. So for me, leaving the country was not an option. I have never thought about it before coming to Europe or to France, and then it happened. So I didn't have another option. And as you said, we have left everything behind. So many people in my generation, we just went with a backpack, and that was all the thing that we had. But besides, we carried the pains, we carried a lot of traumas, a lot of wounds with us. And being in exile, living in Europe, facing a lot of problem as a migrant woman, as a human rights defender, and as someone who left everything behind, that was another part of it. Like dealing with the language you don't know, with the streets you don't know, with the transport system you don't know, with the banks, with the, administrative, and a lot of things that you don't know at all, and you have to deal with it. But then in another side, it was like huge responsibility on our shoulders. We were saying, no, we have to do something back for the country. Now it's not important. Our life here, somehow we can pass it. Somehow we can come over it. But what will happen to Afghanistan? That is more important. We should be there. We should think about them. We should do something for them. Even one of the reasons that I wrote this book and the testimonies was because I was feeling something. I had to do something. I was rescued, but the people there, they were trapped. All the women in Afghanistan, they're trapped. And so, yeah, after being in exile or after leaving Afghanistan, so I always had this identity crisis, and I
Yes,
didn't know which one should I take more stronger, like the France or the country back, or the home back.
mhm. Talking about the current situation in Afghanistan, today Afghanistan is one of the most difficult places in the world to be a woman, to be a girl, as UNICEF said. Girls are banned from secondary and higher education. Women are erased from public spaces, and basic freedoms are denied. As we all know that, and the world is repeating this, that this is not just operation, it's a systematic erasure. And you have called it gender apartheid, a phrase that reflects the scale of injustice. Many outside Afghanistan read about this in news, but they cannot imagine the live reality. My question is that from your perspective, how should the world truly understand the daily struggles of Afghan women under the current regime?
Well, before going back to the international community and outside Afghanistan, it's more important inside Afghanistan. Huge population left Afghanistan, and they're trying to do advocacy as diaspora and in exile in other countries. Even still in Iran and Pakistan, people are doing that, and there are human rights activists and movements who are advocating for Afghanistan, for women in Afghanistan's right, for their right, all kind of right. It makes me so nervous when we only talk about education. Education is something essential. We shouldn't negotiate about this, which kind of education we want. We want a fair and just education that should include like so many things, not only the Islamic things. It should be modern and fair education system, which girls and boys should have access to it. Before coming to international community, I really want to emphasize in the country, it will not happen just by the air, or it will not come from the sky. So we should prepare ourselves, the diaspora, the people in Afghanistan, to resist against this regime, to make ourselves aware that they are stealing our life, our future, our hopes, the generations. And we lost. It is not the first time the Taliban is doing these things and applying this gender apartheid in Afghanistan. In the first 5 years when they were there, we lost a lot of things. We lost our age, we lost our young, we lost our part of our life as women, especially. But it's happening right now today for our sisters, for our girls, for our daughters, for anyone in Afghanistan. So we should start resisting from inside Afghanistan. Like today, of course, I left Afghanistan. People would say, I hear this a lot. You don't have the right to say it because you left the country. But today, when I watch the Nepals and how the Gen Z generation, they are resisting against regime, and they have changed the government. So this is so inspiring. This can be a model for us in Afghanistan and for all of us, even in diaspora. But the thing about the international community, I'm so disappointed, and it makes us sad and angry. They just left the Bonn consultant for the Taliban, and they're talking to the Taliban. They're negotiating. They're trying to recognize them somehow, like Russia recognized them. So for us as women in Afghanistan, as we are facing gender apartheid in Afghanistan, this is unacceptable and it's totally unfair.
Coming on your book, your book, Who Will Hear Our Cries, is more than a collection of stories, as I have read a few chapters of. It is an act of protest, to be honest, by documenting, testimonies of women in shelters, as you have said before, in hospitals and prisons. You have preserved, voices that the current regime want to be silent. Literature has always been, a form of resistance in the past, in the present. From Solzhenitsyn in Soviet Union to Malala's story in Pakistan. In Afghanistan, where freedom of speech has been destroyed, your pain becomes a form of survival. And as a young generation of this country, we have to be thankful of people like you. But my question is this: that do you see writing as your strongest weapon against oppression?
I believe so. Before coming again, for me, literature is something that saved my life. It's saving my life every day. When I'm sad, when I'm disappointed, when I'm depressed, anything, I just seek refuge into literatures. Anytime when I face a problem, a challenge, and hard situation, then when I go through the pages, when I read and I say, oh, there are the people they felt the same way before and they had this experience before me. So it's not only me, and this can help me to see, okay, if they come over to this, so you can do it. And it's the same thing that I felt about my book. The book is more something documenting the stories and the experience of women from violence as men, as the other groups, when we don't read and when we don't know exactly, we don't have those feelings with the words, we cannot understand what happened to the women and their body and when they experience violence. So with reading this book, I hope one day we can publish it in Farsi, and it gives the lived experience of women for the others. They can feel how it would be being a woman in a country like Afghanistan, even Afghanistan before the Taliban, which was not easy, and now
Yeah.
it's worse.
Mhm.
So the Taliban, the censors that they are applying on literature, on media, and on people everyday's life. So I think these kinds of book and writing it and publishing and giving back the content to the country and to the people, it will help them to understand and to also resist.
You have also talked about international communities, but let me say first just that many activists have spoken about the silence or selective attention or of the international community. When Ukraine was invaded, the world mobilized, yet Afghanistan often feels abandoned. Afghan women continue to resist, but their struggles rarely dominates headlines. Silence is, in this case, becomes complicity. I would like to ask you specifically that do you feel that the world has abandoned Afghan women? And what would you like the international community to do differently?
They betrayed already when they left Afghanistan in the hand of the Taliban. They betrayed Afghanistan and mostly Afghanistan women. So I don't have a doubt on that. The Doha negotiations and whatever they had with the Taliban, the agreements, and then they left on 2021. And then every day when they, so many other times when they had meetings and negotiations with the Taliban, without the women, without the diaspora, without the civil society, without the opposition. So that is betraying of women in Afghanistan. So they proved it already. But at the same time, when they're listening to us, when they're talking about Afghanistan women, especially in, for example, in a higher level, or like the last order on Hibbatullah and the others by ICC. So it means a lot for us. We feel to be heard a bit. We're not like totally abandoned. But also at the same time, when we see the Russia recognize the other countries that they are having deals with the Taliban, it also makes us tired and disappointed. But that's also true that when the crisis happen all around the world, the crisis before will be forgotten. Like when the Ukraine war happened, the people forgot about Afghanistan. Then it was Iran, and now it is Gaza. And then it was Sudan, and every day there are more crises, and we are under attention. We don't receive that much attention that we needed, or we need. But still, I'm happy that women are resisting inside Afghanistan and also outside the way they find to protest against the Taliban, even inside at their home, the way that they show with the art, with anything that they're trying. This is something we can count on it.
But despite all the challenges, your story and the stories you share are rooted in resilience. Afghan women have shown that the world, that even under the harshest operation, they resist with courage. And as Afghan people and as Afghan men, we have to be proud of them. You have spoken about wanting to continue your academic work. If I'm wrong, please correct me. The one day to return to Afghanistan and help build a secular education system. Hope even in exile becomes a form of defense, but it will be so interesting to hear that was your vision for the future of Afghan women, and what message of hope would you share with the young Afghan girls who are listening today to this podcast?
I want to say one of the goals, not a dream, that one day we can return back to the country and we can bring this secular education for the women and men and for everyone, this a secular system, education system, because we have been hurted a lot by the radical education that the Taliban applied in last 4 years, and even before that, during the so-called democratic government that we had, which the education was not that much fair, and we had always problems with it. So. I hope one day we can have this. I could be so optimist, but it is so optimistic, but I hope this one day happen. For the women in Afghanistan, for our sisters, what I want to say is I know these days are dark. It is sad, it is heartbreaking, but it will pass. But maybe one day we will take back the places that was taken from us, the streets, the schools, the universities, the ministries, the presidential palace, everywhere we would be belong to us. We can take back our power and we try to resist until that day that arrive and we will educate ourselves. We will learn from our experiences from the past and I'm sure one day we will arrive there.
Yes, at the end, I would like to say a special thanks to you, dear Mursal Sayas, and to all those who continue to fight for Afghan girls' education and freedom, and for social justice, for democracy. To be honest, you guys are the real champions, the true heroes of Afghanistan, carrying the voice of a silenced nation into the world. In your words, in your courage, and in your hope, Afghan girls see a future that no regime can destroy. And
To
we
add,
are
I
proud of
think
you guys. And at the end, if there is anything that I have missed or you would like to tell, Mike is yours. You can tell our audience there.
As a human rights activist, I think the people inside Afghanistan, they don't owe us anything. It's our responsibility, and this is what we have to do because we are living in free countries, and we can do this, and we have this opportunity to talk for Afghanistan. But the real champions, the real heroes are the women in Afghanistan, that they're resisting, that they're continuing their life. All the women and the girls that I know, how they are, even though with all these problems, with all this violence, with this gender apartheid, with this system, they're trying to find a way to get out of it. They're trying to find hope among, I mean, all this violence, this torture, and they are the heroes. They're the heroines. So I would really like to thank them, not to me, not to us as human rights activists. This is our responsibility. This is what we have to do and we should do.